Krisserin.
Hi, Kelton.
Hi, Olivia.
Hi.
I'm Krisserin Canary.
And I'm Kelton Wright.
Follow our quest to publish our first novels
From first drafts to query letters
through inevitable rejection
and hopefully eventual success.
from California
To Colorado. This is Pen Pals.
I'm so excited.
Listeners, we have an amazing guest today. Olivia Muenter is with us. Olivia is a listener of the podcast, so she knows how this works. Olivia, I'm going to just read your intro back to you. Olivia Muenter, thank you and welcome. You are the author of the USA Today instant bestseller, Such a Bad Influence. You're also the co-host of the Bad on Paper podcast, which I love and you all should be listening to. And your second novel, Little One, is available for pre-order now. Olivia has been published in Glamour, Birdie, Bustle, Brides, and more, and I found her through her most personal writing on her weekly newsletter that you can read at oliviamentor.substack.com, which we will link in the show notes, where she shares about her life, her work, her incredible home, her amazing fashion sense, and her great ethics. Honestly, it's part of why I love you. You have really nice values.
Oh gosh, that's I wish I could just like frame that and listen to it back, Like just thank you so much. Also, Pen Pal super fan. I am a huge fan, truly. Like I tell everyone about it, but I'm so excited to be here.
Well, we're really excited to have you. We've never done this with a guest, but because Olivia is familiar with the format, we wanted to go through the goals we set for ourselves last week with Olivia. So, Krisserin, remind us, what were your goals for last week?
Well, thankfully you wrote them down in our little document that we keep because I forgot them. My goals were just yeah, of course. My goals were just to I remember. My goals were to finish revising the last part of the second book that I've been working on and hopefully start getting to the part where I'm actually creating new material. But you wrote, "Don't be scared."
That was the core thing I took away from Krisserin's goals last week, is that it was like, don't be scared.
I was moving from revision into actually writing. And I've been thinking about it this week. I have not created new material in so long. It's been probably over a year since I've actually written new words and haven't been just, picking over sentences that I wrote an age ago. So it's been really stressful. And I like go to bed at night thinking about what I possibly could write the next day. And I am definitely a pantser and I've like lightly thought about little things and how they're going to resolve themselves. But right now I feel like I'm playing connect the dots because I don't really know what's going to happen. Like I know what the end looks like and I know where I'm at right now, but I'm trying to like Pac-Man style get to the end bit by bit. And it's been hard. It's been really stressful.
Olivia, you're like sort of in the center of Krisserin and I's writing styles. Mine is just write it fast and publish it weekly. And Krisserin's is write it quietly in the background and tell no one for ages. Whereas you're working on these huge publishing projects, but you're also publishing a Substack all the time. So like you do keep your writing fresh, even when you're just revising.
Yeah, I try. I don't know. I try. It's funny because I think a lot of times when I listen, I feel like I am between you two. Also, like mindset wise, sometimes, which is it makes it really fun to listen because I get so much out of what both of you say. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I swing between a lot of different modes, like fast and quick, not really editing it, back to very slow, tell no one until I have to. It keeps it interesting, I guess.
I like that. I mean, my approach this week, my goals, Krisserin, if you remember, were to not write anything. My goal was to relax. After
It's a
doing
good
all
goal.
the pushing, and you need to have that goal sometimes. Like everything in my Capricorn body pushes against it, but rest is productive. It is a fertile ground in which things grow. So I was just like, don't do anything extra. It was like, I'm still hosting the class. I'm still doing all this client work, but I took a week off the newsletter, which is always so relaxing for me. Now that it's been over 4 years of 2 essays a week, like, when I take a whole week off, I'm like, "Oh, I can feel it in my bones."
I don't know how you do that. Like, I used to do a personal essay every week, and I ran out of, like, feelings and experiences, I think. Or maybe I don't know, it's so hard. Like, it's so hard to do that, and I admire that so much. But you do need rest, it's true.
Yeah. Well, I had a kid, which really refills that well on personal experiences. So
Yeah, I imagine that'll do that.
I can't write a personal essay to save my life, so I admire the heck out of both of you because I'm like, I can't even imagine if I would sit down to think about something I'm sure there are things, but I repress them, as any and save
Yeah.
them for my fiction.
I was gonna ask you whether you think it's like, I know a lot of people, they say, "I could never be that vulnerable," or, "I could never expose myself in that way." Is it that, or is it more just like, "Oh, that's not where my skill set is?"
It's a great question. I feel like I am just a coward, where Kelton's very brave and, and you are very brave to put your guys' thoughts and feelings out there. I think that I would probably really struggle with crafting an essay that I felt truly encapsulated how I felt about something without being very concerned about how other people were going to think about it, which is why I also feel really like weird about posting videos of myself talking to camera with the exception of this podcast, but I'm talking to you guys, so it's different. Or even taking a selfie. I'm just very self-conscious.
I get it. Like, every time I listen back to Bad on Paper, I'm like, just thinking of all the speaking of perception, I'm like, "Okay, how is that gonna come off? And how is this?" And yeah, I get it.
I do want to get to a place where I can write essay and someday, and we've talked a little bit about this idea that I have to write an essay about the place where I grew up and tell stories about real people who live there and my experiences with them. But if as a sign of personal growth, I hope to someday be able to write about myself. But I think it might take some time. I think I might need to be like in my 60s or 70s, and that's okay with me.
I think you'll also find that when push comes to shove and you do write that essay, that people just don't care that much. It's
Of
like,
course, I'm not nearly as important
well, even if you
to people as
are,
I am
when
knowing.
you write a personal essay, like, the freeing part of that is it's how you feel, especially if you're talking about things within, like, the very small bubble of your life. If you're not tackling societal issues, if you're just like, "This is how the logs in my house make me feel," no one's like, "Okay, well, actually, if you did a little more research about the type of tree it had been, you would realize they should make you feel this way." That doesn't happen in the kind of writing that I do.
It's
I'm
true.
sure someone out there would make that point.
There is, like, I always think that with personal essay, there is this level of, it's almost like protection that you don't get in fiction, because I think people are like, "Okay, well, that's their experience." I'm not gonna show up in the comments and be like, "How dare you feel this way about your body image?" Like, that's not happening. But with fiction, I think people think, "Oh, it should be different," automatically always. So it does feel like you're in this little bubble of, like, it's your truth, and people do recognize and appreciate that, I think.
I think we need to dive into some of your writing about this. Such a Bad Influence is such a fun thriller because it's written through sort of like a multimedia experience. It's both prose and like Reddit forums and emails and text messages. And it's very like, it feels like being in like a modern life because that is how that you are absorbing information and communicating with your friends. And like you lean on all these themes of online identity and performance. And we're talking about how we straddle that line right now. Like, are you influenced by having this public persona and then going into your fiction world?
Yes. Certainly, it was particularly difficult with Such a Bad Influence because when it came out, I was at that point, I had started, like, transitioning out of being in a kind of traditional influencer role. So, for anyone that doesn't know me, I was an editor and then I was a freelance writer, and while I was freelance, I started building my following and supplementing that work with brand partnerships and affiliate links, which turned out to be much easier and much more lucrative than freelance writing. So, I pretty quickly ended up being, I always call it like a capital I influencer, when I started writing Such About Influence, that was a huge part of my career. By the time it came out, I would say maybe less so. I had decided to step away. But the meta experience of like being very online, writing a book about being very online, being an influencer, writing a book critical of influencers, but also critical of the criticism that influencers get. It was all a bit of a, can I curse on this? I
Yes.
don't. Oh, okay. It was all a bit of a mind fuck, to be frank. But I think also it was, I don't know, you worry that people aren't gonna take you seriously because of something you've done in the past, or every insecurity, I guess, is amplified when you have an online presence in some way, I think.
Yeah. Do
I
you
don't know
mean
if that
that
answers your
you
question, actually.
Yeah. But were you worried that people wouldn't take your book seriously because you'd been an influencer?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think part of that is internalized misogyny in a lot of ways because I never liked saying I'm an influencer. I felt so cringy about it. I felt like it wasn't a quote real job. And at the same time, that phase of my career and my life is really the only reason I had the space financially to be able to sit down and start writing fiction. Like I wouldn't have had the ability to do that if I wasn't able to step away from other more time consuming freelance projects because I was linking my outfits every day. So, yeah, it's layered.
At the same time, having a platform probably really helped you when you did wanna go and query and find an agent and sell the book, right? So it's a bit of a double-edged sword.
Well, that was a huge part of it because my experience publishing Such About Influence is very non-traditional, and actually, I met my editor before my agent. I met my editor because I was living in Philly, she was living in Philly. I was in my prime influencer era, so I shared absolutely every second of my life, and that year, that was 2021, I had started writing fiction, and I just absolutely loved every second of it, and I shared about it all the time and how I was writing this book, and I didn't know what would happen with it, but I loved it, and she saw that, and she emailed me in January 2022, and she said, "Hey, I'm in Philly, I work at this small independent publisher called Quirk. I saw you're writing a novel, can I read what you're writing?" And it snowballed from there. So, in a lot of ways, it's literally because of my platform that I ended up with the deal for Such a Bad Influence, which I am incredibly grateful for, but also you can imagine made me feel like any imposter syndrome I had, which I will have for the rest of my life, I'm sure, just through the roof. So, yes, that's my non-traditional path.
I had no idea. And it's such a good testament to like talking about your work and putting
Mhm.
yourself out there. I mean, she also put herself out there. She was just like, "Hey, you don't know me. I want to read it." So, I love the brazenness that comes with both of those sides. Krisserin and I are obviously so enthralled by what the process of getting published because we're still on the other side of it. I published a book when I was like 26 with Thought Catalog Publishing. I wouldn't recommend going that route. But we want to know, like, what happened then? Like, she loved your book. It's how did you go through the process of getting an agent?
She asked to see what I was working on. I had quite literally never shown anyone my fiction writing in the world. I was used to sending out essays every week. I had been an editor, I had been a freelance writer, but fiction was essentially completely new to me other than a one-off class I took my sophomore year of college. And so you can imagine like sending that to her, just like I wanted to die. And it took her actually a really long time to get back to me. And that book I sent her is actually the book that is going to be my second novel, Little One, which comes out in February. And we ended up developing Such a Bad Influence together. So once we decided we wanted to do that, she introduced me to like a handful of agents, and I basically had to query them. So some of them rejected me, some of them said yes. And I sent them sort of both projects. I said, okay, I have this thing, I have this other thing. I want you to like both of them. A lot of people were like, absolutely not. And at that point, Little One was like in the roughest shape I can. Like, I knew that at the time. Now I'm horrified that anyone has laid eyes on it. But I found my agent that way. She was also in Philly and we met. And I am so thankful every day that like this weird series of events led me to her because she's, like, perfect for me in every way, and I love her. But that's yeah, it's a very strange series of events.
One of our questions, on the back end was like, what how was the process different for Such a Bad Influence versus Little One? And it's funny to hear that they were actually working in tandem from the beginning. At arguably
Yes.
that Little One was around first. So that's
Yes,
really cool.
it was. I was a very different person when I started writing it in 2021, but I believed in it and, like, I went back to it and I kept going back to it, and there's something really, really powerful about that, and for that book, after Such a Bad Influence came out, we went through the traditional submission process to Big 5 publishers, and, yeah, that was an emotional minefield as well.
I'd love to
Tell
hear
me, yeah,
what that was
tell me
like,
why.
if you can talk about.
Well, I mean, just to get into, like, the emotional process of it, I think I had such insecurity about Such a Bad Influence, both because of how the deal came about, also because I thought they only gave me this because I have a platform, or it's only successful because I have a platform. It's not a big 5, it was a very small deal. And on Bad on Paper, we're interviewing these people who have these huge platforms, these massive deals. My co-host Becca had the most dreamlike, public first novel submission process you can have. And I thought, well, we're going to go out and sub with this book that I've been working on for years and years that is like my child, I feel so emotionally attached to. I've put everything I have into it, but I already have a track record. I have a successful book that's come out and I have a platform. I've proved myself and it's going to sell and I'm going to never feel insecure ever again. It's going to sell to a big 5 and I'm going to be like, I am a real writer. And it's not just because I have a platform. And yeah, I mean, I had many more rejections than I had interest, like, which is normal. But I think it was, it's humbling when you're getting like 12 rejections in a span of a week that are all for different reasons. It feels crushing, which we all know if we're writers, right? But I think I thought it would validate me in such a way that I would like never doubt myself ever again. And it didn't. And I'm so grateful for my deal and I'm so grateful for where I ended up. But no, it didn't cure my imposter syndrome at all. Like, I still think I, like, tricked them, you know, all the time.
Glad to know that never goes away.
I'm I always think it will. It does not.
Did you have that conversation with your agent? Because I've heard writers talk about that where their agent will ask them, "Do you only wanna hear the good news or do you wanna hear everything?" Because it can be so emotionally crushing when you're getting the inevitable rejections that come when you are submitting.
Yes, we did have that conversation, and my agent does, which is what I think, like, a normal thing. She has a spreadsheet, and she can put the exact quotes from, like, why people said no, or she can hide that from me, and I can just see it was a no. And so I was just refreshing constantly. Actually, I always think about I did a book event for Such a Bad Influence in Portland, Maine, and it was the most gorgeous, like, weather. I love Portland. I was so happy to be there. And I was on submission and the rejections had just started coming in. So I was literally just walking around the streets of Portland, Maine, refreshing the spreadsheet, like crying at different places. Cause it's just it feels it's the worst feeling to just be like, I put everything I had into this, and I mean, you guys know, but I if I did it again, which I'm sure I will need to at some point, I would not look at any of the feedback because it's not helpful at all, and I still remember some of the rejections, like, word for word.
The book that I'm working on now that we're gonna be putting out for submission is the 3rd book that I've written. But My Little Ones is my Gustafson novel. It's my multi-generational story that I put a lot of my family history and a lot of emotional weight into, so completely I can understand how that would feel. It would be pretty hard for me, I think, to go through that same process. But I'm so interested to know what the process of working with the editor for Little Ones was like, considering it is a book that is so important to you. Did you pass edits back and forth? Were there substantial changes that you made? What did that look like?
Well, yes, there were lots of changes, but I love my editor, and I feel like I've just hit the jackpot that I've loved both of my editors so, so much. But I think one of the reasons that I'm really, really thankful that I did Such a Bad Influence first and I went through that process is that I developed a bit of a thick skin with the precious nature of your first novel and your first publication experience because I had this other novel, but ultimately I put it aside and I worked on Such a Bad Influence, and I love that just as much, you know? And to me, it was this moment of thinking, I will make the changes, I will go through the rejections, I will small deal, big deal, deal in the middle, like, it doesn't matter to me. This is what I wanna be doing in whatever form, and so when I got to Little One and I was working with a new editor, I feel like I was just better able to roll with the punches and to absorb feedback and to be patient, and it's all hard, but we went through quite a few drafts. I think the first big round of edits I did in it took me maybe a month, but I ended up adding, like, 8,000 words. So, I submitted it at maybe 77,000 words, and it ended up around, I think, 88 or 89. So, we added a lot, which I'm really grateful that I subbed it kind of a lower word count.
I'm curious, both Such a Bad Influence and Little One really center around sisters. Do you have sisters? Are they reading your books?
Do you wanna guess?
I mean, my guess would naturally be that, like, yes, you have sisters because you're drawn to write about it, but do you?
No. I have a brother, a younger brother. I will say my mom has 7 sisters, so I
Mm.
have observed so many different types of sister relationships, but actually in both of my books, they didn't start out as sisters. Like, they were more distant, and then in revisions, they just kind of it made sense to bring them closer together. I think, like, to get really kind of, like, I don't know, therapy speak about it, I think for me, the sister thing comes a lot from just I'm just very prone to comparison, and, like, I'm competitive is another way to put it, but, like, I think I have always grown up feeling like I was not good enough, and my natural inclination would be to compare myself or to compete, and I think a lot of times that was with friends or with peers, and never because I didn't want something for them, it's always because I felt insecure, but I think the sister relationship is an interesting way to, like, mirror that comparison and competition and tension that I sometimes feel with the world, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's actually really lovely. I love also that you can have a bunch of sister relationships in your life that are not your sisters, that you can observe from a safe distance and not be accused of dragging someone through the mud.
Well, listen, there's always parents in my books, and I have parents, and so I have heard feedback often. But that's probably another podcast episode.
I mean, I did tell my mom about the novel I'm writing. I'm like, listen, I don't even know if I'll ever finish this novel, but I need you to know that the mom in this book is really bad. And it's a plot point, it's a device. It is not a reflection. This is not a book about you. This is fiction. Just to like
Yeah,
layer the goodwill in early.
I've certainly had that conversation too.
I wrote a short story that made my mom very uncomfortable because I used things from her life in it. And it's hard because it's like my mom is the oldest of 8 kids also, has 4 sisters and 3 brothers. So you do learn a lot from those types of really large families. There's a lot of dynamics that are very interesting there. But I have to ask you, Olivia, what's your astrological sign?
I won't make you guess again, I'm a Pisces.
I knew it.
I'm not, like, a big
I was
astrology
gonna guess
person,
Pisces.
but I do identify the Pisces traits very much.
Yeah.
I love a Pisces.
That competitive nature is very
Is it?
Pisces, but
My husband is
yeah,
also a
from
Pisces,
my experience.
and we're very different. So, that's always been interesting to
Interesting,
me, but, yeah, I very much
interesting.
feel connected to my Pisces self. I don't know if I'd want sisters, though, to be honest.
Oh, I mean, I'm glad I'm the baby of the family too, but I have 2 daughters. So, there is this natural inclination to compare. They're very different in how they act, how they look, what they're good at, and it's very easy to say like, "Oh, well, Sabine's this way and runs this way," and I have to stop myself from doing that because it's not. nice and it's not helpful, but it does happen. And similar to what you were saying, my mom is the eldest of 8, and so she raised all of her siblings on top of,
Wow.
being one of many girls in the house. And so I grew up like, I have 30 something first cousins. There's like 50 kids that my grandmother is responsible for. And you do see these dynamics, and it is interesting. Sisters have very interesting dynamics for sure. So I'm sure it's ripe for fiction.
Yes, I totally agree.
It's also some of the relationships in Such a Bad Influence in particular, where the mom at times really feels less like a mother and more like another sibling that needs management in the house. So there's a lot of those dynamics playing out. Do you reflect any of those themes in Little One? What do we have to look forward to?
Yes, there's definitely a strong presence of parents who have affected their children in pretty intense ways. That's a through line. I love my parents, to be clear, mom and dad, if you're listening. But I think that I love writing about the ways that we're raised just carries through, and the ways that it's like impossible to separate yourself from that sometimes. And so that's definitely a big part of Little One. I think not so much competition or comparison is in the sister relationship in Little One, but I really like thinking and writing about this idea of like being in the same boat with someone, like the desire to like find someone who's the same as you and what it feels like when someone rejects something that you love or rejects something that makes you feel safe, and how it forces you to like really contend with what you want and what you need, and also the ways that all of that plays into, like, community and groupthink and cult.
Totally. I'm excited for Little One. Will you give us like the two-line pitch?
Sure, I don't know if it's 2 lines, but I'll do my best. It's
Give us two
a dual
pages.
time 2 hours, no. It's a dual timeline novel about Catherine, who grows up in an extreme wellness community cult run by her father. And so in the past timeline, we see her there and all the things that she likes and dislikes about it. And then in the present timeline, we meet her as an independent, successful adult living in New York City with a very, as I said, independent life. And a journalist comes out of the woodwork and starts to ask her questions about how she grew up and the cult that she was raised in, and all her secrets come to light.
I love a secret. I'm excited for this. The book comes out in February, right?
Yes, February 3rd.
Perfect moody winter writing. Speaking of setting a mood, oh God, Olivia, your house. I'm so obsessed with the pictures of your little writing cabin and your desk, and like you just have such like a aesthetic approach to writing. Will you talk to me a little about how real that is?
I mean, like, I have a
How real
spin
that
bike
is,
behind me
Kelton.
right now, so I don't it's not like the most aesthetic thing.
But, it's like sometimes I feel like when I am working on a problem with any of my writing, if I can make working on it beautiful, it makes working on it easier. So when I see some of the things in your space, you have such great taste and it's so beautifully curated. How much does that reflect in your writing? Do you have an alternate path as an interior designer you're not telling us about?
No, no, I mean, thank you, that's so flattering. I feel the same way about your space, by the way, but
Thank you.
I've always just liked things, like, I've liked colors and texture and old things and little spaces, and it's just always made me excited and happy to be alive. And so I'm really in this phase of realizing I'm an adult with free will, and can create these spaces, and I can go to Staples and buy a gigantic cork board for an obscene amount of money. I don't know if you've been in Staples lately, but they're really just pricing things out of this world. Anyway, I can do all of this and it makes me so happy. And so I just I like it, I like my little bowl of seashells and my candles, and it's simple, and so I'm like, why shouldn't I prioritize that? And I feel really lucky to have spaces where I can make them my own in that way. And yeah, I love sitting at my desk every day. I do. I love it. and it's just mine, and that feels
Mm.
really, really nice.
So, what's the pie chart of an Olivia day? How is your time dedicated and spread out?
I usually spend the first 2 to 3 hours, I would say, of the day working on the most creative stuff first. So, I journal and then I do whatever the most important book project work is. So, if that's drafting or revising, right now I'm trying to get a proposal ready for book 3, so that's all I think about day and night, and I work on that first. Then I'll usually try to make some time to exercise, eat lunch, try to get some fresh air, and then usually the later part of the afternoon is podcast stuff or Substack stuff or promo stuff, a combination of all of that, I guess. It's not
It's
that
my
complicated
dream
or
day.
interesting, actually.
Oh, but it sounds so nice. It's like just working on like the projects that you are pouring yourself into is such a dream state.
I feel very lucky. I really do.
Do you have a ritual around that morning time when you're doing your most creative work?
I mean, I like to make a nice coffee, usually like my second or third of the day. I like to play music that makes me feel inspired in some way on my speaker in my office. I journal, like I said, I have a writing journal that I've been using for the past maybe year and a half. And it has just absolutely changed my life to have a dedicated space where I just brain dump the many, 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 many worries and ideas and dreams and excitements that come with this career, and to put that all in paper before I go to the work is like very, very important to me. And I also tend to read like before I go into my office, which I find really helpful. It's pretty simple, actually.
Who's in your reading pile right now?
I am reading a completely unhinged book right now by Kristen King called A Good Person. I think it comes out in the spring. And it is like the most deeply unhinged, as I said, unlikable character I've ever read, and I love it. I'm like, "Make bad decisions. I like it." It's so good. I'm only a quarter into it, but I'm really loving it.
Okay, well, we'll add her to our TBR list for next year. I love a good cover. Actually, I want to hear a little about your covers. I have no idea what the process is for that. Every once in a while, I get served on one of the social media platforms a reel of someone who designs book covers, and they'll be like, "Here's the brief, and here's 5 covers I designed for it." And every time I'm like, "Oh, these 4 are garbage, but this is the one that sells." I have such strong opinions about it. I'm like, "Oh, no, I'm gonna be annoying if this ever happens to me."
It's it's a weird thing because it takes this moment of, like, it's hard to see the forest for the trees. You're looking at every little detail in such a intense way. You know everything about the book. It has to be this certain thing. You've thought about it for your whole life. What is this gonna look like? And then you get it and you're like, yeah, that's nice. But it takes a minute to click into place, you know? Like it's
Mhm.
hard to explain maybe, but, it's been a bit different for both of my books, and the paperback of Such Bad Influence has a different cover as well, so I've actually had 3. But for my most recent book, they just sent me the cover, and they were like, "This is it. We've come to this conclusion. It's this." And it had a different font, but they were like, "We've talked to sales, we've talked to marketing." There's a lot of different people involved that aren't you, like, before you see
Mhm.
it, at least in my experience. And so I talked to my agent, and I tell her all the things that I don't necessarily wanna tell my editor, like, "Oh, I'm worried about this," or, "Does it look too" I don't know. At one point, I thought it looked too gender neutral. I wanted it to be clear it's a book about women, for women, and, I mean, men can read my book if you want, but uh, probably not for you as much. So stuff like that I'll run by my agent, and then she sort of helps us put it into like a nice little package to send back to the to the editor. But ultimately, I think I've just learned you kind of just have to be like they know best. But if there's something you feel really strongly about, of course, push back. Like I didn't like the font at first, and we went through 3 or 4 iterations, and I also asked to see the other options because I knew there
Mm.
were other ones, and they were like, "Well, we don't usually do that because if you fall in love with one that we don't want, it's like sort of a bad situation," which I understand, but they did send me one of the rejects, and it helped me understand why they thought this one was better. The way they pitched this cover was they wanted it to be like Paper Palace with an edge, which is
Okay.
I love Paper Palace. It's one of my favorite books, but I was like, "Oh, actually, that is exactly what it is. Good job."
You're like, wow, okay, so I see why you have a salary for this.
Yeah, oh, this is your job. Yeah, that's right. I know why.
Speaking of our distinct jobs, something that Krisserin and I have been talking about a lot this season is authorial voice. Obviously, that is the key role of you as your writer, is having this vibe essentially of an Olivia Muenter book. Do you ever think about that when you're writing? Has that ever come up where someone talks about your authorial style?
I really liked the conversations you guys have been having about this because it's something I don't really think about that often, but I will say I've been working on my 3rd book for this entire year, basically, and when I sent it to my agent, I was a bit worried because it's quite different, but I was like, "Are you sure this sounds like me?" And she was like, "Yeah, obviously," but I don't know why. It's hard for me to pinpoint why. So, Krisserin, when you were talking about the conversations you were having with your agent, which, by the way, congratulations. I was very excited
Thanks.
when I listened to that
Thanks.
episode for you. It's like a really hard thing to figure out. It's like I think it's there, and whenever people tell me, like, when I read your books, they sound like your essays in some way, I don't understand how that's the case, but I'm glad it is, you know?
Yeah, I still haven't figured it out. So if and when I do, I'll let you know.
If
Maybe the
Krisserin,
key is writing essays.
I was gonna say
I
the
was just gonna
safest thing.
say.
Like, maybe it's don't go out with, like, publishing them right away, but, like, maybe trying short form personal essay is a fun way to find your voice.
Maybe I do need I was that is literally when you said, "People say that my books sound like my essays." I'm like, "Ooh, maybe I need to write an essay." I don't know what I would write about.
UCLA offers a really great course on personal essay. You should see when the next time they offer it is. I know you're big on courses.
I do like a class. I do. I have so much time for one right now too. It
Well,
would probably be January, winter
Yeah.
session, I would assume. I should read more books of essays. That I think that would be a good place to start. We talked to Chelsea Hodson, whose first book was a book of essays, and I do think that I mean, I read your essays every week, Kelton, so I'm
Yeah.
a Kelton Wright, Shangri-Log's essay expert at this point, but I will say that the last week when we interviewed Leslie Bannatyne, it did inspire me to go back to short
Mm.
stories. So maybe Olivia, after our interview, I'll go and think about some essays to write.
Olivia, your essays are very good. Is there any
Thank you.
memoir in your future?
I well, thank you. That means a lot coming from you 'cause the feeling is mutual, but I don't know. I've had a few people ask me like, "Would you do an essay collection?" And I'm like, "I don't know if I have that much to say." Like clearly I do. I've been doing it for years, but there is this feeling of like, what have I been through that warrants this, which I know is like not a great way to think about writing at all ever, but it's a real thing that I, go through. But for now, I like having Substack as like the personal writing hub of my life. And ultimately, I'm in this for the long haul, whatever pays my bills. If there's someone out there who wants me to write a memoir, if my agent is like, "Have you ever considered this?" or I would follow it.
Yeah.
All I want to do is this. So never say never.
Well, I love that approach. All right. I kind of want to letterbox you, but for books. I will not hold you to this, but I do want to hear like what are three favorites that come to mind? They do not have to be your top time all favorites, but who's making the list for now?
One book I think about all the time. I read it almost a year ago and I think about it constantly is Night Watching by Tracy Sierra. I this is a I don't know if either of you have read it. It's a book about a woman who is alone in a very, very old house in New England during a snowstorm with her 2 small children, and she thinks that there's an intruder in the house, and she is watching him on her little baby camera, and it is so suspenseful, page turning, will not be able to turn will not be able to put it down, but, like, the greater message of like if women are believed and the terror of being a woman in the world, like it's so well done. The writing is just excellent. It's like my ultimate literary suspense recommendation, and I do not hear enough people talking about this book, so I like to evangelize about it. That's one.
Oh, you
Sorry.
sold
Like the
me.
perfect book club book. Yeah, it
I'm
sounds amazing. I'm
I'm
gonna
the
have to recommend it to
biggest
my book
fan.
club.
It is so scary, though, especially if you have small children, so just
I know, I'm a
keep that
little
in
like, I
mind.
might wait on this one.
Do not read it
Yeah.
alone, but man, just so good. I also recently read Tilt by Emma Petit, which I have been telling everyone about. This is about a woman who is very close to the end of her pregnancy, about to give birth. She is in an IKEA and there is a huge earthquake. Again, West Coast, so I don't know. I'm like only suggesting things that may scare one or both of you. But it's about like the big one, this earthquake that may or may not happen on the West Coast one day. And it's a lot about motherhood and the fear of motherhood. And she has to find her way to her partner through like the chaos of Portland. I believe she's in Portland. So good. Short. I read it in like a day.
I read a lot about this book. I have read so
Oh,
much about this book. It's been on my TBR pile for a long
it's
time.
so good.
It's just like, it's exactly what I want out of a book. I love
Yes.
disasters. I love people having to navigate them. I loved the idea that she is pregnant in the book, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and so it was like, I started hearing about this book when I was pregnant, and I was just like, "Oh, I would
Oh,
be so good at this. This is, like, right up my alley. I should still be in LA, and I should have an earthquake while I'm pregnant." I was like, "Wow, babe, you need to reel it in."
you won't think that when you read it. You'll be like, I don't want the earthquake. You don't want it. But it is, I think, like knowing your taste a little bit, I think you would like it. It has a lot of heart and humor while being just beautifully written.
It's cool. Alright, number
And
3.
third, I would say Notes on Your Sudden Disappearance by Alison Espak, who wrote The Wedding People. This was her second novel, and it is such a good coming of age story. It's about a two sisters, one of whom dies, and the whole story is told from the younger sister to the older sister who has passed away, about everything that changes and evolves in her absence. And it is beautiful. I loved The Wedding People, as like everyone did. Most people did. But
Did. I thought
yeah,
Alice Nessbach was an amazing dialogue writer, especially.
yes, yes,
And
and
I
funny. She's very funny.
so funny.
I liked Notes on Your Sudden Disappearance actually even more than The Wedding
Wow.
People, so I recommend it to everyone. I'm also an evangelist for that book. It's one of the most beautiful, like, moving last scenes, just perfect, that I've ever read, so I love it.
Oh, I can't wait.
So I saw that you have an upcoming retreat in the Catskills. Is this your first retreat? It's so exciting. It's like in a couple of weeks. You must be really looking forward to it.
Yeah, so I worked with a company in the past that did group travel, and they planned the trips, but I kind of hosted it and I promoted it, and then I went on them with everyone. And I got such immense joy out of just being in a room with people who love the same things. And like, I just was like, oh, it makes everything that I love about being online, writing, podcasting make sense. Cause I'm like, oh, this is actually why. I just want to hang out with other people who like these things and who can talk for hours about books or writing. And the only thing was I wanted to plan it myself, as the slight control freak I am. So I had this goal to plan one myself, and or a version of it. And so yeah, this is my first one in a couple weeks. It sold out, which I was really very nervous about, but excited about. And I've just been putting together all the little goodie bags and spending too much money on Etsy, honestly. But I just want people to have a space where they can feel really comfortable to love the things they love and watch movies with a fireplace. I don't know. It's very simple, I guess. But yeah, it's my first one in this new format that I'm hosting myself.
Well,
I love that.
I wish I was going.
I know. I saw that. I was like,
You're
oh,
invited.
damn.
You're
The
invited.
Catskills is probably beautiful this time of year, too. Nice and cozy.
Krisserin and I would really love to eventually host a retreat. Then we just both have to get published first.
Why?
That little thing.
I would go now. Like,
I
Let's
mean,
go. Let's just the three of us, little mini retreat.
yeah,
I would go.
It'd be
Honestly.
us and
good.
all of our friends. It'd be like a girls' trip is what it's
Honestly,
gonna
it
end up.
sounds nice. Yeah, this is just a girls' trip.
That's kind of what
I
the retreat is.
I love that so much. All right. You obviously have your goals lined up, Olivia, but please help us with ours. We need to figure out what our goals are for the week ahead. Krisserin, you're on more of a timeline. So is there anything in particular that you're trying to knock out?
I am and I'm not, right? Because I finished revising the work that I needed to have done by December 1st. So I'm not touching that work anymore. And now I'm really just trying to figure out, I have probably another 100 pages or a little bit more than that of writing that I need to do for to finish the second book to get to the end. And I did figure out the Lord of the Rings ending for my book, like how I wrap up every little storyline and the resolution of what life is going to look like after resolution comes, but I need to get there. And so right now my goal is to figure out how to make my characters' lives as miserable as possible until I get to that point. But I just don't know how to do it yet. I don't quite know how to throw them into the fire. So, Olivia, if you have any tips on generative things to do to help find the story, that's where I'm at right now. I need to just keep writing. I've been doing about 1,000 words a day, and they're not good, but it's just getting story down on paper and getting the plot points I know I want in the book down on paper. But it's very, like, blindly feeling around for it, and quite literally, I was listening to you guys talk about the spaces that you create for your writing, and I am up at 5 a.m. in the pitch black darkness in my garage with, like, crickets and spiders around me, like, with one little lamp in the dark, little
Listen, I
mole.
can fix this for you. All you
Okay.
need is a taper candle. Like, there's literally nothing that a taper candle can't fix. I'm a firm believer. It makes everything cozy. It will change your life. In a garage, just get a few. You will all I'm telling you, it will help. Candles.
Yeah,
It
and
That's all I
my
have.
it
vote.
would help, but my in-laws get up at the same time as me. They're older, and my garage faces the kitchen, and they're like the lights on, and they're walking back and
Mm,
forth, and they're making coffee and stuff. And so, as peaceful as I try to be, I think that's why I make my space so dark, because I'm trying to blot out the
I
Can
light
see.
of.
you can you hang some curtains? Like, I know you're hanging curtains in a garage. I understand the futility of this, but you could get a curtain rod at Home Goods or Target for like 35 bucks and get some shit curtains and
It
just
doesn't
close that
matter.
out, light your candle. I'm a big Palo Santo girl. I'm like set the mood with scent,
I
you
like
know?
incense. Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
It's hard. The garage is not the ideal writing location. Actually, the room that I'm in right now is great, but then um it's if, like, my husband's sleeping, it's, like, right on the other side of this, and so it's hard. I don't have a room of my own.
Listen, Boyan can sleep through you typing.
Not on this keyboard, it's loud as hell. It's a
I have
mechanical
a
keyboard. I'll figure that
I
out,
have one
but
too.
it's the generative part that you know,
Right,
the
we're like,
mood's
have
not
you
gonna change
tried
anytime soon.
going to Home Goods and getting some candles? That's all we have. Um, okay, I don't think this actually answers your question, but something I have been thinking about as we were talking about essays and stuff is one thing that I've been doing recently is thinking of essay angles to pitch places in promotion of my book coming up, which is a really
Mhm.
strange way to think about your novel. But in a way, it is like this path into personal essay that is directly connected to the narrative that you're writing and the characters. And maybe it will both help you with the voice aspect of things, but also just think about the goals of the story in a different way. It's really challenging, I think, but if you're stuck and you're just like, "I need to write something else," because for me, sometimes that's helpful. I don't know, maybe not this week, but I don't know. As I said that,
I
I'm like, "That's
mean,
stupid, Olivia, take it back."
no, it's a great idea, and honestly, the thing is that the novel that I'm working on right now, the themes are very relevant to the world that we live in today with parasocial relationships and being chronically online and what's real, what's imagined. AI has is not in the book, but there's definitely an element of that. So I could see that working. I think it brings me back to what Kelton was saying about how much she hates research, because when you're talking about a subject that a lot of people have opinions on, a lot of people have opinions on it. So you have to get it right. I would have to do some research to write about this from a informed and educated perspective, but I do love that idea, so I'm gonna think about it. That's
You
really
know,
cool.
something I also like doing is finding a movie score that matches the tone of my book and going for a walk and listening to the score. For me, it's almost always Planet Earth 2. That covers every emotion I've ever had.
That's
Every
true.
year, that is my number one on Spotify for the last 6 years.
That's actually so
But
cool though, because mine is always something really not that great. It's like I don't wanna expose myself, but it's not Planet Earth 2 soundtrack, so
I feel like I should write a letter to Jacob Shea and be like, I don't think you understand how much your music has impacted my writing and my life. But find a score that matches the tone because it'll carry you through those moments where you're throwing them in the fire. Especially if you choose like an action movie soundtrack, because that's sort of what your speculative fiction feels like to me.
Yeah.
And like move, like go for a walk because you kind of need to let that part of your brain get out of the way and let that imagination part react to the music. So that is something I do when I'm trying to get the gears going.
I am writing an adventure suspense
Mm.
novel, which I didn't plan on doing because I don't really read them. So I'm like, okay, well, people are getting chased and their heads are getting cut open. I'm like, this is not what I thought was going to happen. But it's a point well taken. I'll think about because I listen to jazz typically, and it's like very moody jazz music with no vocals or anything. And similar to you, it was my Spotify Wrapped was like Miles Davis and Ethiopian jazz. And then I'm sure this year it'll be like K-pop Demon Hunters, whatever my kids are listening to on top of that.
everyone's listening to that these days.
100%. All right, I'm gonna think about an essay. I like that, and try and find some music and to get myself in the mood. But Kelton, what are you gonna struggle through this week?
Well, Olivia, I sent Krisserin and another friend of mine who published my memoir proposal, along with the first 3 chapters. And they both gave me feedback, which I have not looked at or responded to. But I will say top line, because Krisserin and I did talk about Krisserin's feedback, and I got voice notes from my other friend with her feedback. And you both kind of tackled the same thing. You both were like, the chapters are good. The proposal itself is what needs changing. You went in opposite directions. Chris Aaron was like, it's
Interesting.
more of your voice and more of you. And my friend who has sold a memoir in this, like loosely in this genre, was like, it needs more selling. And so she was like, you need some stats and figures about like why the zeitgeist will like positively react to this type of book, why they would be incentivized to buy it. And so I unfortunately do have to do some research this week. That
The
is what is
worst.
um and I got to dive into the first round of edits on that. Olivia, I'm giving myself all of November and December to polish my proposal because everybody was like, you can't query at the end of the year. Everybody's done over it, holidays, etc. So I have the next 2 months to work on it and to start thinking about who in what order I want to query.
Have you let yourself look at agents again?
I've only looked at them once. I looked at who the agents were for a few of my comps and I was like, "Okay. All right." And I have friends who are like, "Well, I'll send it to my agent." So I'm just trying to think about in the best case scenario, I am getting to choose an agent. And so I just want to be thoughtful cuz this is like my first go out the gate talking to agents and I'm like, I don't want to mess this up. So, do you have any guidance for me in that genre?
I'm I'm no expert, but I mean, it sounds like you're doing all the right things. I have nothing for you, actually, I'm so sorry. But, it sounds great. Yeah, Chris Aaron,
Listen
please,
to your
Stefan. Like,
other
why am
friend.
I here?
Don't listen to me. Listen to your other friend who's actually published a memoir.
But Chris Aaron, your advice about what the key sentence was that kind of hooks someone because I am starting this proposal with a question to try and draw the agent or the editor or whoever ends up reading it into it to be like, I do want the answer to that. And so you highlighted that there was another question in the document that was perhaps more powerful, more compelling. And so I am thinking about that as like the lead line. Um, and then just adding people in there. Olivia, you're in my proposal right now. I have a
What?
section of people, yeah, where it's these are people I could potentially reach out to talk about my
Oh,
book.
yes, literally. I will give you a pre-blurb. I seriously, both of you. I'm so like excited to see what both of you do because I just feel like every week I'm cheering you on and every week I relate to something and yeah, I'm excited. But I do have one bit of advice with navigating feedback. If you have two different things, I feel like you are someone who just so instinctually trusts your gut on things. And I always think about feedback. Sometimes I will, if I'm sending something to my editor or my agent, and I'm like, I don't know about that. I don't mention it to them, and I see if they say something, and then I take that as, like, my guidance going forward. So it's like sometimes I just leave it to them to confirm my gut instinct or not, instead of sometimes I'll leave a note that's like, what do you think about this? I'm on the fence." But if I just leave it,
Mhm.
usually I don't know if that's very clear, but I feel like if you're trusting your gut instinct on things, I think regardless of what the market wants or what has sold before, it changes so often, it's, like, almost impossible,
Mhm.
I think, to formulate the perfect pitch. But I'm excited for you. I'm excited for both of you.
Yay. Well, it's been so exciting to have you on Pen Pals. If you like Pen Pals and are not already listening to Bad on Paper, I highly encourage you to add it to your podcast Rolodex. It's so good. It's so motivating. It feels like hanging out with friends.
Thank you. Thanks. I feel the same about your guys' podcast.
Olivia, what are your goals for the week? What are you hoping to get accomplished?
So I am finishing my proposal for this book 3 and also getting ready for the retreat. So I'm just really trying to, like, trust my gut instinct and that, like, I believe that this is good, and I know that even if it's rejected, I will keep going with it, and sometimes I feel like that's the only measure of success I have. I will do this until I die. It doesn't matter who rejects me, it doesn't matter what devastating email I get, I will keep going, and so I think my goal is just to keep going and just to send the proposal and know it's maybe not perfect, but it'll land where it should.
Light some candles, walk around a beautiful city crying. These are the things that bring us together.
I did I tell you the story about me walking around Portland crying before or after the Pisces? Because that was the giveaway, I think maybe. Like, that was the giveaway, if not the fish candle holder. I'm like, "How did you know I was a Pisces? I don't know."
Talk about it after. I don't want any other Pisces coming for me.
Olivia, it's been such a true treasure having you on the pod. I feel like we've made a real friend. So thank you for joining us. To everyone who listens, you know where to reach us at officialpenpalspod@gmail.com. You can find us at penpalspod on all the platforms. Please write to us about who you'd like on the podcast and all the questions you're curious about. We love hearing from you. And
Everyone go pre-order Little One. Where
there it
can they
is.
pre-order it, Olivia?
You can go to my website, oliviamuenter.com, and you can find all the links, but Bookshop, Amazon, Barnes& Noble, your local indie, I'll take anything.
Remember, pre-orders are what make the difference. We love Olivia, so get
right.
your pre-order in now.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys so much, and thank you for everything you do.
All right. Happy writing, everybody.
Happy writing.